Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. Karen, hope you're with us too, and I think other people are going to be joining us. Thank you guys for joining. What I was hoping to cover today, and I hope you guys are here for, is to hear a little bit of an overview on what we call our Individual Development Program Cohort. We call it IDP Cohort for short. This is something we started running last year that had 6 participants last year, and anywhere from 6 to 20 is great in a cohort. It's very personalized and very intentional about the growth for the person who joins the cohort as the participant, but also it's intended to help the business as well. So all training obviously should help the company. Add Chris Murrin here. Okay. Hi, Chris. Obviously, all training should have the great benefit of benefiting the participant, but also the company. But this program especially is designed with that goal in mind. The idea is you're investing in some of your future leaders, people you consider department heads or even senior leadership. And instead of buying talent in the open market, especially right now where it's so challenging to find great talent, you're looking at growing your own talent from within and accelerating their development. So in a tough labor market, it's one of the best strategies. It helps with retention, so you don't lose your people to others. It helps with continued professional development, which is always great for employees and the business. And it shows the people involved in the program or the cohort, but also everyone around them, that the company is investing in its own for its future. And that displays that there is a future, right, for some companies who are looking at how do we transition effectively to that next gen set of leaders, but also, gives the participants a sense of being able to own their own destiny a little bit. So we'll talk a little bit about, I'm very informed. Hi there.
Oh, is it?
If you can find a mute button on your side, that'll be great. But please do jump in and speak anytime you guys like, anybody. Very informed. Would love to have you guys jump in, ask questions as we go. We won't take maybe even a full 30 minutes, but by all means can do that based on your schedules. Okay, so the IDP cohort really has 3 essential parts: classroom workshops and training, where the cohort, all the participants, come together to learn. What's great about the program is there are some core concepts that we want to teach, and those things are focused on communication, management and leadership and your style, your personal brand as a leader, conflict management, some things that everybody can always benefit from. But we also take the first month or 2 to get to know the cohort, their goals, what their sponsors from their company want them to learn. And as we're developing this individual development plan, which is the 3rd component on the far right, we might uncover, for example, that we've got 4 people out of 10 that really need to learn some basics around sales and marketing. And maybe we would decide to allocate one of the 9 sessions to talking about that and bringing in an expert to that end. But the benefit of this cohort is that we get to sort of plan as we go with the people that are in the program. If there are no specific needs that benefit the whole of the group, then we do that through the professional coaching relationship or through the IDP. But everybody gets what they need out of it. And where we can do it as a group, we get the benefit of group discussion, peer discussion, multi-company, with outside facilitators. Could be me or someone else on my team that is more like an HR and leadership and development professional, or it could be a business professional that we bring in to help talk about the concept at hand. So there's 3 different ways to take a look at it. But the classroom session happens once a month. It's 4 hours at the TMA. When we had to do some virtual last year, we did, and we made that work. But the idea there is to build a peer group that people can then reach out to after the program and learn as a group where there's benefit from talking and dialoguing about topics as well. The second piece is the professional coach. The professional coach is a one-on-one relationship that we set up with somebody from the Chatfield team who does executive or professional coaching as part of their career. This and the next piece really are what differentiate the IDP cohort, but I would say the professional coaching relationship is so personal and so meaningful and often lasts beyond the class. We have 2 of the 6 participants from last year who are continuing with their professional coaching relationship after the cohort because they gained so much benefit from it. The company gains the benefit, and there's still so much growth and learning that can be done that they're leveraging that relationship beyond the program, and we just work with them sort of on a one-off basis there to continue their growth. But that is a relationship, and we can say it's between me and Karen. Karen, if you're the participant and I'm the coach, we meet. What we talk about is confidential, with the exception of when you and I go together to talk to your sponsor about your individual development plan and what your personal goals are for yourself and the business as you participate in the cohort. And really, we follow the participant's lead. So if Karen were the participant, her lead on what she wants to talk to her sponsors about and where she wants to ask for help. But we will help the participant think about how the employer can help, what kind of behavior change will help the participant achieve their ultimate goal. Sometimes that looks like, how do you become a leader among a group of peers that you've worked with for many years, but how do you elevate and step out and now manage the team? And it can be very personal. In some cases, people have said, oh, it feels like therapy. It's the stuff I can use at home too. It's not a psychological coach per se, but we do have a lot of that kind of training and sense about the dialogue where it's really about the whole person. Sometimes that can be, how do you balance work and life and give your company your best and your family your best? And so that can look differently for each person. But that personal relationship is based on what do we know the participant needs? Who do I then match with them as the best coach based on experience and background? And we have several with different industry background, all with manufacturing background, but also some with sales background or other background that could be beneficial to individuals. The third piece is the individual development plan, the IDP. The IDP is a tactical strategy. It is a document that we put together, and I'm going to go ahead and show you that real quick. This is just a snippet of it, but the IDP is a document that the coach and the participant in the cohort put together that the sponsor, so maybe those of you on the call or others at the company who sponsor an individual for the class, provide input to. What are the long-term plans for the individual for a career? How do we help them get there? What do they need? What are the action steps? So it's very tactical, but it provides stepping stones to get to a much longer term plan. So for example, we had a design engineer at a company who was part of the last cohort, and he was doing great design work. He struggled a little bit in quite a bit, I say a little bit. He struggled quite a bit with concise communication, especially in client settings. And yet he had all of this brilliance in his head and did amazing work, and customers really valued what he did. And there was a sense that he could elevate and become the leader of the design department. And the company was growing and adding engineering design folks. And that this person could become part of a middle management level that the company had not previously had. And the goal with him was to get him to that position inside of 18 months or 2 years from starting the program, and had action steps around communication, around work-life balance, around not being a perfectionist and realizing that while the designs needed to be perfect, not everything had to be ticked and tied for every step of the project, and learning how to acknowledge that this is a work in progress. There were some personal things that were important to him about his brand that we had to balance with the business needs of moving progress forward. So that coaching discussion was important, but also then we documented the steps here, how to establish himself as a leader, how to take more leadership with client and customer relationships, how to coach others informally in the design team, even though he wasn't the boss, to give him opportunity to lead, even though he didn't have the formal authority or title, and get him ready and test him out a little bit. And it was very above board and transparent. And I'm happy to say that he last month was promoted to design team manager. So that's one example of success. All 6 of our participants last year, four of them all had goals of stepping into a next level leadership role. One a production lead, one is engineering design lead, one from inside sales and outside sales to sales manager, and one from CNC operator programmer up to running the CNC department at his company and becoming part of the middle management team. The other 2 had different goals. One was actually a company owner, co-owner, who did not have exposure to parts of his business that he felt created a lack of credibility on his part with customers and with his team. And he was astute enough about himself to ask to join, to ask if it was a reasonable thing for him to do. But then we had to figure out who was his sponsor. And so we engaged his business partner, the co-owner, who was more seasoned, had more experience, and could be a good internal coach and sponsor for him. But they worked together every day, and they never stopped to talk about the participants' development as a leader. And so it was very valuable for him too. He had no upward path, but it was about expansion and growing his knowledge. So he had great success as well. And then the last person was an office manager, HR lead, a little bit of an office assistant and support agent for everybody. There were some opportunities there for her that we needed to evaluate and help scope and understand and give her exposure to, but also help her assert herself in her career growth and decide what was right for her. So while not an upward step, we helped sort of illuminate her options and focus her in on something that was more specific, customer service in this case, where she was really, really strong, and be able to pull apart her job and bring in some other people to help the company continue their growth and cover the roles that someone else was having a hard time letting go of because she wanted to keep it all. So with her, the goal was different. So that's the IDP captures all of the work steps. On the left is action steps, the success measures in the center. What does success look like when we do that well? And then the resources. This could be time, money, or computer needs or classes, for example. Time might be coaching time from somebody in-house. Money might be to go to a class externally, or to buy a new CAD program if they have to learn something in CAD for their next step, or whatever that might look like would show up there. And then out to the right, we capture results, and that's sort of off the page. But the idea is to be able to show a track record of success in a very tangible way that allows people to see progress over time. So we've talked about the 3 components. The classroom, it's once a week. It'll start in August. It's at the TMA. It's topical, peer knowledge based, and provides that social connection for people outside of the class. We talked about the professional coach. This is a very personal connection to help get to know them at their core and understand their goals and aspirations as well as those of the company. There's never judgment. There's always a lot of thinking and collaborating and evaluation on the best path. And the coach coordinates with me and others, Lee, Nahali, others involved at the TMA, and the sponsors to help make sure that what's being worked on personally and privately is shared appropriately with the sponsors, and that we're moving forward. And as things surface in discussion, that they come back to me as the program facilitator to think about, am I seeing patterns across the cohort for training opportunities? And do we want to build that in as we go forward? So it's a pretty integrated approach, and the coach is the glue sort of in that process. And then we talked about the development plan. This isn't something that we come in with. We create it over time. It might take 6 months to create. It's not about how quickly we do it. It's about the quality of the conversation and the intent behind the plan that's much more important. We get input from participants and their sponsors or leaders. It benefits both the person and the company, and generally they have, a 12 to 18 month trajectory to look into the future. I've worked on some that have as much as a 3-year plan, and then outside of the cohort, we've continued to meet on a quarterly basis or frequency that made sense to make sure that people achieve their longer term goals as well. Okay, I'm going to stop there really quick. We talked a bit about the program facilitator role, which is really the role I play, content and program design, coordinating with the sponsors, making sure if you're the sponsor, we connect and let you know where we are on progress, and I'm always available for a dialogue, and coordinating with the TMA to make sure we're all aligned on how and what we're doing and where, especially when we had to go offline last year, how that was going to work. Required a little more integration, and then making sure everybody's aligned on goals and aspirations and expectations for coming out of the program. So I'm going to pause there a little bit. Any questions from any of you on the phone about the basics? And then I've got a few more slides we'll cover. Okay, I'll jump right in. So the workshop facilitator, so this is someone who actually teaches in the classroom. You can imagine their role. They also help, answer questions real time as we go through content. It's not a self-paced learning, it's really instructor-led, and the facilitation in the classroom is really critical to get the team talking. So they have a critical role there. They'll also feedback anything they see in the classroom to coaches. So an example of that, it happened to be a class that I was facilitating, but I do have different people on our team facilitate depending on the topic. I happened to be in a sponsor meeting with the CNC operator programmer, with his sponsor and his coach when we were doing a debrief, and they talked about the desire to have that person own their opinions and own their decisions and not shirk answers. In order to be a leader, he had to be able to say, yeah, so here's what I'm thinking, and it might be uncomfortable for people, but let's talk about it. Here's where I'm at, and invite the dialogue. When in fact, he used to say, I don't know, what do you think? I don't know. It'd be casual and it'd be a throwaway. But I got to see him in a class that I was facilitating where he actually did the, I don't know, and I called him on it. And I did it gently and, with some humor. But I said, you don't know? And he said, I don't know. I said, you don't know? And he said, oh, I do know. And he kicked it in. And he realized what he was trying to work on was so hidden and just happened that he had to really think about change. And so we worked on behavior change in the classroom. He applied it then for the rest of the day and engaged differently, and I was able to report that back to his coach. So there is some real connectedness, and the facilitator will do that as well. It's little things, but behavior change is hard, especially when you're dealing with behavior patterns over time that are in the way of somebody becoming a next-gen leader and stepping outside of his peer group to become a leader. So the role of the sponsor, so those of you that are on the call that might be sponsors or be able to help us identify the right sponsors for participants from your company. The role of, sorry, I'm talking about the coach here. Let me go to the sponsor page first. The sponsor page reflects a little bit of what we look for in the sponsor. The sponsor is someone who should be celebrating progress, ensuring that there is an advocate in the business and a support agent in the business for this person to take time to develop and grow. One of the roles, the gentleman who I said was a co-owner of his company, that was the biggest role that his co-owner provided for him. In addition to them agreeing that there was a ton of benefit of talking about his own development for the participant, the co-owner provided coverage and was in the building and available to staff every Tuesday morning when the leader stepped out for class once a month to cover. And he usually didn't go into the building. The second piece was they agreed that the co-owner, who usually was not present, would go in every Tuesday morning to give the participant time to plan and think and work on his own development and goals and objectives, which he didn't have time to do when he was worried about what was going on the floor and trying to take care of the team. And so that is something I checked in on last month. That is something that has stuck. And so every Tuesday morning, he's working outside the office and the co-owner is there to support the team and to run the business. So lots of different ways that change can happen. And for him, it was about learning the other part of the business he didn't have as much exposure to, but also about creating space and time to think and be creative and problem solve. Bigger picture, harder, meatier topics than those that just pop up day to day that are easier and transactional. So the sponsor also needs to provide feedback on the IDP and provide the company's lens, the company perspective on what needs to go into that development plan. So it's a thoughtful role. It's a very important role. In the beginning, the first couple months of the class, we probably ask for 2 hours each month from the sponsor in the first month to 2 or 3 at most to talk through what we're looking for, to make sure we're all aligned and then get some input on the IDP. And then we meet sort of every other month through the rest of the program to talk about progress and report out to the sponsor so they know there is progress. Sometimes the participants do that pretty well independently. Other times they want their coach and program facilitator to be present. We always encourage that because we can help tie the glue together, but we love it when the participant is doing that with their sponsor just by virtue of the relationship they have and keeping that dialogue open in between formal sessions. And the IDP coach, we talked about that a little bit. This is the one-on-one coach. They're really going to meet offline and independently, and they'll determine the times and dates that make the most sense. The coach will check in and meet at least monthly. In the beginning, it's probably more like twice a month, and then levels off to once a month towards the end of the program. It can continue past the time of the program if that's of value to the business and you want to do that. About half of our participants from last year did. They create the IDP draft with the participant and the sponsor and make sure it's well written and concise and thorough, but also that it really reflects everybody's points of view, and help support the participant during the discussion with the sponsors. Some may be uncomfortable talking about themselves or their goals with their sponsor very directly. And sometimes their aspirations don't exactly match that of the company. And so that's a really good opportunity for the coach to facilitate a healthy dialogue to get to a win-win outcome. And then to help with asking for support and resources. Lots of employees don't like to ask for money or their boss's time when they're already really busy or whatever that might look like. And then be a sounding board and help be open ears and a helpful voice that never judges and never is in such a rush to get to the next thing that they don't have time to just sit and listen. So that's really the role of the coach. So the participant role, pretty straightforward. We ask them to own their own development. While this is being done for them by their company, and it's a huge investment and it's really valuable to both sides, we want the participant to want to do this and to really invest and own it for himself or herself. To take advantage of the opportunity provided by the employer, which really means go all in, right, is probably what I should have written on the slide. But communicate honestly and openly, and trust that our goals, all of us collectively involved, is truly just to help that person achieve theirs, and not have any skepticism about intent behind this. There's a lot of transparency in the process, and that trust is important. And then asking the participant to really learn to be open and vulnerable to trying new opportunities and to sharing things with their peers in the classroom, but then trying new things on the job and coming back and sharing it with us. To ask questions, be inquisitive, and to stretch themselves professionally and to try new things. All of those really are things we talk with the participants about early on. Okay, so cohort details are here. We can talk through the basics, and then I'd love to take just a couple minutes to answer any questions. The cohort typically runs on the last Tuesday of every month. Sometimes we change the date a little bit for a variety of reasons, but generally it's the last Tuesday of every month in the morning at TMA for 4 hours, 2 hours a month of coaching with a Chatfield professional coach, somebody on my team that will work with each individual. It includes assessments, and we didn't talk a lot about that, but part of the program cost is what people might call psychological assessments or pre-hire assessments, but it really gets at how smart is somebody, the cognitive. So if you say, you know, I really think this person has a great aptitude for numbers and shapes, but they're not so great about communication, what's going on? We can get to some of that cognitive capability and be able to tell people they're actually very good with words, but when they took the assessment in Spanish, they scored off the charts. When they took it in English, that's where you saw. So maybe there's a deficiency between using two languages that we can work on. But also math and numbers and shapes, things that are important to the industry. It gets to work styles and preferences, what you like to do at work, how you behave at work, how you address conflict management. The assessments are all baked in early on, and we use them in class, but we also use them to help develop IDPs. And the IDP creation, the reviews with the sponsor, and the support to achieve goals, and then the peer network, obviously, is a result of the class. Class runs for 9 months. We bill it at $450 a month, which is basically the equivalent of one job posting a month if you did a job post to replace a person or to hire someone, or it's roughly the average cost of one day of class a month at TMA. If you sent individuals in just to attend the class, that's roughly the same cost. So from a value perspective, we hope we've positioned it well. And frankly, I think you get 3 times the value out of it than the cost when you look at all the component parts. But would love to answer any questions about any of this and talk to you guys about anything top of mind. I realize we're at 11. Thoughts or questions? Karen, Angelo, anyone who's with us?
No, I don't have any questions right now. Thank you for this. Very insightful, very helpful.
Great. I will ask Lee and Naheli to share my contact information. If anybody wants to reach out, please let me know. They can talk to this, of course, as well. Hi, Chris. And yep, by all means.
No, there's some questions in the meeting chat.
Oh, there's questions in the chat. You should have yelled at me. Thank you. Let's take a quick peek. Thanks. Okay. Tim, glad you joined. Thank you. Who typically holds a sponsor role? Sponsor role could be anyone from owners of the company, department heads, could be the HR person. Generally, it should be somebody who understands the end professional goal of the participant. So it's somebody who can open doors and understand the end goal that we're after. In some cases, that's best done by a senior leader in the company. That's what we found. It's often an owner. It also gives the participant some ability to get exposure to the boss 2 levels up that normally they don't get to meet with or present to, and it gives them opportunity. One thing I didn't mention, we also bring the sponsors in for the last class and ask the cohort to each individual to talk about what they've learned and what they've grown by doing as part of the cohort. And that's very personal, and it was incredibly meaningful to the sponsors from the last session. So the sponsor could be anyone, and ideally what I'd suggest, if you'd like to talk personally about that, I'd love to hear more about your business, who you're thinking about enrolling, giving you some ideas about the right sponsor and working with you on that. Happy to take a call anytime. Cohorts grouped into similar roles. No, actually, there's great benefit from when we bring a variety of people together, Chris. It is intentional. So look, I have a background in psychology, so I'm honest about that. I do things with intent, whether you see it or not, it's always got intent behind it. So if I'm facilitating a class and I know we have somebody who doesn't like to lean into conflict and is highly conflict avoidant, and somebody else who really, really works hard to collaborate and get to win-win solutions, or somebody who really likes to fight and be a winner and be in a win-lose situation, I put them together to work through scenarios where the avoider has to win and the other person has to concede. And so we do a lot of different kinds of activities that are more psychologically, but we also do that around, and that's about behavior change and recognizing yourself and being self-aware and growing that way. But there's also some real value in having, for example, the owner of the business in the cohort with somebody who's very seasoned in the area that he doesn't have experience in, and learning from each other. So let's just say it's quality. The owner didn't come up a quality track, doesn't understand how to measure or do quality, and he trusts his team to do it, but he's got a quality lead in his cohort. The dialogue they have about their business is hugely valuable, and they just learn from the dialogue. So we actually like cohorts that are diverse at all levels. And I am a bit of a matchmaker in that regard and find the right ways to put the coach and the sponsor and the participant and then the classroom setting all together, so it benefits them in the long run. So I'm pretty actively involved, and I think that's actually a real big part of the benefit. Relatively blank slate on the IDP and core competencies, absolutely. Totally blank slate. We start with what does the company want, and the coach has a private conversation, and what does the person want, the participant, and we have a private conversation. And then we say, how aligned are they, or how different are they? And that's the coach's job. Where it's very aligned, it's a very easy dialogue then to say, let's start putting some things on paper and let's ideate together about what could be different or additive beyond what you have thought of. And where they're very different, let's say company wants person to go back to college and get an engineering degree because they need it to be legitimate in their role. But student says, I hate college, I'm never going back. How do you deal with that? So that's then a facilitated dialogue, and we work to getting to a collaborative answer and an approach on the IDP then that works. And in some cases that may mean somebody concedes or we find an alternate path, but that's really, it is truly blank slate. And it's very personal. We have a lot of ideas and things we've seen in the past, but absolutely, it's very blank slate. Thank you for pointing out the questions in the chat. What else can I answer for you guys? Angelo, Karen, Naheli, Tim, we didn't get to say hello in the beginning. Anything, Tim, top of mind for you?
Nothing from me at this point.
So my contact information's, I think, on the page here. Feel free to give me a call or drop me an email if you'd like to have a conversation. A handful of folks are on from TMA as well, so they will know information too.
Hey, Marcy.
Yeah, please.
Hi, it's Karen. I have a quick question. So how does a program like this even go hand in hand with using, like we would use Joliet Junior College to do the apprenticeship program? How would this play with an apprenticeship program, or is it one or the other, or how does that usually work?
Fabulous question. This is it's a perfect complement. So what's really interesting, right, about the TMA is I think of it as kind of two sides of the same coin. The technical skills that you need to get as an apprentice or working in the business, doing the work, and the leadership and management skills that you need to be effective on the job. And that's at every level. This cohort, the IDP cohort, is more focused on those softer skills, the leadership and management side. However, because of the IDP cohort, the IDP plan and the personalization that we can build into the development goals, we have had people that need to join the apprenticeship program or attend a mold making level 1, 2, and 3 class, or take an engineering design program, or go take a CAD program or Excel basics. So the IDP allows for the technical and the soft skill development. The coach is going to be largely behavioral and self-awareness based and facilitative to make sure everything gets done. But they absolutely go hand in hand, and that's why I love the program. It brings both sides of what the TMA education team offers, the technical and the behavioral, and we can layer in outside classes from anywhere. We do that all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. What else could I answer for anybody? Karen, anything else or? Okay. Please write down my name, number, contact information. Everybody at the TMA knows how to get a hold of me. More than happy to talk to you guys offline. We had one company last year send 3 people, all from different roles, and we've had companies send 1 person. So if you have a couple, that's terrific. They can have a cohort inside the company too, to talk about their learnings, and that's a good thing, or they can be independent and work with their cohort at the TMA. Either way works. That might have been another question I think that came up. And candidly, if a company has 6 or more people that they want to do this with at the same time, please reach out. We'll look at pricing and do that differently, but also look at using your facility and customizing it a little bit to what you want for your company. That is very possible too. We haven't done that yet, but we do that with other leadership and management classes through the TMA. We definitely can bring them in-house, and this could be one that we do that way as well. Okay. If there are no other questions, I thank you all for being here. Feel free to reach out. Talk with you all soon. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Week. Yeah, thank you. Take care.